The almighty Netflix has spoken yet again and has deigned to allow another Lumix camera into the brotherhood of Netflix-approved cameras. The BS1H, a box-style cinema camera Lumix released back in October of last year, is that camera, throwing another log on the fire of the box cinema camera war of 2022. And yes, I do know that Lumix and Canon already have box cinema cameras in the past. Thank you all for letting me know again. But what's been happening the last 6 months has been an explosion in this conversation about this style of camera in particular. But we're talking about the BS1H from Lumix in this video, so let's get back to that. This is the 8th Lumix camera to be approved by the gatekeepers at Netflix. Sounds like they have maybe an inside man. This is not the first box-style camera from Lumix to make it into the club either, with the BGH1 also making the list, and it's considered to be the cheapest Netflix-approved camera. Before we talk about the specifics of the BS1H, what does it take to get Netflix approved, for those of you who don't know? And Netflix has a handy little chart to show you the capture requirements for a Netflix-approved camera. For the resolution, the camera must have a true 4K UHD sensor. It must be able to shoot RAW or compressed, like ProRes XAVC, AVC Intra. Capture color space must be an S gamut, 3 Cine, red wide gamut, RGB, Alexa wide gamut, etc. And files must maintain all metadata, tape name, time code, frame rate, ISO, white balance, you get it. And even after all that, your camera still might not get approved, as Netflix says other attributes must be taken into account, such as dynamic range, form factor, stability, workflow, compatibility, etc. We will note too that even with all of these requirements, a couple of cameras have been able to skirt by those rules, with it being reported that 30% of Netflix's best movies of 2020 were shot on non-approved cameras. Okay. But with the BS1H, it more than clears these requirements, featuring a 24.2 megapixel sensor that is capable of recording up to 6K, 14 stops of dynamic range, a Leica L lens mount with a full frame sensor, dual native ISO, V-Log that incorporates Vericam's color science and supports C4K, 4K, anamorphic 4K, and 4:3 aspect ratio. And with the Atmos, the BS1H can actually record up to 5.9K of ProRes RAW and Blackmagic RAW, all for the fairly low cost of $3,500. It's a pretty good camera. This camera feels like a great fit for movies that need to mount cameras on drones or plan on doing some kind of like more complex filming of scenes and require something a bit more modular and smaller form factor to get the job done, or a crash cam. And if you want to use this camera the way Netflix cinematographers do, Netflix has an incredibly detailed camera production guide for this camera specifically, so you can adhere to their requirements. We've linked to that below. And while I'm kind of skeptical on Netflix's approved camera list, it's fair to wonder if this is a sign of things to come for future camera releases this year, potentially. And while I myself am skeptical of whether or not I even use one, it's something that's going on in the industry that we can't ignore. Which brings us up to the question of why does everyone, and that's a sarcastic everyone if you couldn't tell, want a camera like this? And we answered that question in this video where we polled a bunch of people about why they want a box style cinema camera. Check it out here. It's a great video.